had basically told everybody in my life that I was going to be a doctor.
Wow. And everybody's so happy, right? Everybody's so happy.
It wasn't just like, I don't want to say crushing, but it was like, it was a lot of thought. It wasn't just something that it was like tomorrow, like, wow, woke up and it's like, I can't wait to disappoint everybody that I've ever known.
Hello, and welcome to the Patient to Professional podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Anna Huang. She's been my patient for a long time, and she was in for an exam recently, and I couldn't help but enjoy her energy. So, Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, happy to be here.
Great. So, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you do today? Like, what's your career choice, and what does a typical day look like?
Yeah, for sure. So I work at the American Heart Association. I am a quality improvement program consultant. So basically, what I do is I work with all the hospitals in New York City and Long
Wow.
Island. And I work with their doctors and different administrative staff to make sure that they're keeping up with the different guidelines with different cardiovascular disease states, such as heart attack, stroke, resuscitation, atrial fibrillation, and etc.
Wow, very, very exciting. So before we talk about how you got here today, tell us a little bit about what your typical day looks like. Are you virtual? Do you go in person? Tell us a little bit about your typical day.
Yeah, so I actually work completely remotely. I work from home. I have a dog. I wake up, I walk him, and then I basically sit at my computer. And most of my days is filled with a lot of meetings and emails. Like I said before, I work with a lot of different people across New York City, with lots of different schedules and such. And so I schedule them with them accordingly. And I sit down and I sometimes make some PowerPoints to kind of explain to them where they might be like needing to make additional improvements to different parts of the care continuum. So like for example, if you were to have a stroke, you need to like get X medication within this amount of time. And so I work with the registry from the American Heart Association to kind of look at how many patients are getting this X medication within this amount of time. And if they're not doing so well in that, I will point it out to them and work with them to say, what are some of the barriers that's preventing you from being able to give this care at this point in time? And sometimes it'll be logistical, like we're understaffed, or the doctors are unprepared, or like they're unknowledgeable, or they don't have the knowledge to do that, or et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it's much easier where it's like we forgot to write it down or something along those
Wow,
lines.
wow.
And so basically it's I work in public health, and so it's like very public health based. And so that's basically like what most of my job is talking to different people to see like where we could be making improvements, and again like the care continuum for cardiovascular disease.
So, as a physician, I know it's hard to get in touch with me. Is part of your job getting the person to meet with you, whether it's a hospital administrator or a director of a hospital? Is that part of your job trying to set up a meeting?
Oh, 100%. That's like half the battle is just trying to herd cats. It's like,
That's
oh, are you free at 11? And then they're like, we are only free at 8 a.m. I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I guess.
And then you take it, right?
Yeah,
But do they ignore you sometimes? Do you
of
have to be
course.
persistent? Yeah, of course. So I just want the audience to know, not only do you have extreme knowledge base in public health, but you have to have a thick skin,
Oh,
because
yeah.
getting these meetings, you make it sound easy, that I'm sure you say, "Oh, tell me, Anna, how I can help my hospital better or help my patients better." It doesn't work like that, right? It's like, why are you bothering me? Who are you to tell me what to do? Is that the attitude they give you sometimes?
I mean, on occasion, but you'll be surprised that for the most
Good.
part, people are very open to it because, like, they have to buy into our registry program. Like, they have to pay money in order to put money into, like, the registry or data into the registry. And so it's not like, they have to do, okay, they do have to do it because there are,
Okay.
like, state regulations and such,
Right.
like, different policies that make, that like more or less like force the hospitals to put their data into some of these things. Like in New Jersey, where you are at, like the New Jersey Department of Health, they all also use the registry program to monitor the different strokes across the state. And so like they have to do that with it. And like because at the very end of the day, like you as a physician, like you know that you want the best for your patient.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes it does feel like a little bit like pulling teeth, like what do you know? Sometimes
Right.
like you
Right.
don't have the knowledge base, but like I always tell them like I'm not your enemy. I'm just here to deliver information to you. Like we're the American Heart Association, we have the guidelines to support those scientific evidence-based practices. I'm not here to say like you're not doing a good job. I'm here to try to see like what we could be doing better, because a lot of the times, like I was saying, it's not their fault. A lot of the times it is like more systemic issues in which it is more difficult to tackle. Like yeah, sometimes forgetting to write things down is like normal. Everyone does that.
Right.
Like that's
Right.
regular people stuff. But there's different ways to combat that as well. Like when you put patient records into the computer, sometimes you have pop-ups that will help you remember to do that. Like that's
Right.
a really easy way to combat that.
Yeah.
What, like I said, sometimes they're more systemic. Like, well, the patient is not taking their medication. What do you like? You want me to prescribe this super expensive medication? What do you expect to happen? And
Right.
then I have to sit there and be like, well, that's yeah, unfortunately. But like there are a lot of different kind of like leeway that we can give to try to like
Yeah.
again do that. And a lot of like the joy out of this career is being able to also supply them with different resources to try to again like combat it more systematically, whether it's through partnerships and different programs like supporting patients through like like NGOs and stuff, or sometimes like giving them more knowledge about the different policies regarding like Medicare, Medicaid, etc.
Yeah, you're their ally, but I want, before we talk about your very impressive academic resume, I want the audience to see your personality, hear your personality, that it's not just being smart and know these medications and the protocol and the regimen and the side effects and all this, is having the grit to set up these interviews with high level people, hospital administrators, physicians, and also stand your ground to say, yes, I'm here to help you so you can help your patients. We're on the same team.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of like, there's definitely a lot of people. There's no teaching somebody to like be a people person.
That's it. That's what this podcast is about. You just said it. There's no course about learning to deal with people. And in order to be successful, that's one attribute that's vital, in my opinion. So you hit it on the head. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about how you got to this career? Because I looked at your LinkedIn and you have a long work history for such a young person. It's really, you've worked for many, many years. Let's talk about how you ended up at the American Heart Association. How did you end up there? Where's your path?
Yeah, sure. So, I knew in high school, as I'm sure that many of your patients already knew, they kind of wanted to be in like the healthcare field. For like reference, my brother is an emergency medicine resident now, and my
Right.
parents are both in the healthcare field as well. And so it felt like that was kind of like the only thing I could do, just because like I didn't know what else there was to do, which I think was a little bit unfair, and a little bit obviously skewed because obviously that is not the only thing you could do. But then like, so I went to college at Cornell University. I studied human development. And then I thought like for sure, I was like, I'm gonna go to med school, et cetera, et cetera. I took one gap year doing AmeriCorps with City Year New York. So I lived in East Harlem in New York City,
My
and I
word.
taught elementary school. I ran their after school program for a year. And that's kind of like where a lot of my perspective really changed. It was like kind of seeing that again, like I worked with a lot of different kids from, more, I guess, like socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds. And it kind of like put the light bulb in my head, like, yeah, you can help one student. And obviously changing one person's world is very effective. And obviously, like, you've changed the whole world if you change one person's world. But I kind of saw like from that like perspective that there are a lot of additional like systematic issues in which like uh just like changing, just being able to like individually meet with one person is not enough to really kind of make a dent in
Right.
what is like, you know, wreaking havoc in education today, for example. um, and so from there, I kind of like pivoted a little bit and I decided I kind of wanted to go more into public health. And again, like it's like to no hate to anybody. Obviously, as a physician, you can still do the similar things.
Right. Yes.
But for myself, it really saw like that's kind of what I wanted to do. And so after my year at City Year, I went to Columbia University for my master's in public health. I was in the Department of Socio-Medical Sciences, which doesn't mean anything to anybody, including myself. And I kind of like concentrated in comparative effectiveness outcomes research, which is more or less like implementation biostats, which is like we take data to like again like look at how effective different kind of like treatments are. And so from there, that's like where I kind of ended up here. I got really lucky. I also did my public health schooling during the pandemic, which I do not recommend to anybody, which I'm sure, again, most of your patients
Sure.
already know how much of a terrible time that was.
Right. Right.
But a really important time to be part of that, like be in school and like see all of your professors freaking out all the time about those
Sure.
things. And so I did public health. And then, like I said, I got super lucky. One of my professors actually recommended me to work at the American Heart Association. And here I am today doing more or less what I studied to do.
And how long have you been there?
I've been at the American Heart Association for about 3 years now.
Great. So let's backtrack. So you're in high school, you're kind of thinking health career, something doctor or something within the health field. You get into Cornell University. You got your degree before you went to AmeriCorps. You got
Yeah,
your your bachelor's degree.
yeah. Mhm.
And at that point, were you thinking of medical school yet? Throughout college, I'm sure you were taking prerequisites. I'm assuming you were taking chemistry, biology, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely was like, was ready to take the MCAT, etc. Like, I was ready to go. I think I actually did take the MCAT, which I don't recommend to anybody, but
So, and that was during your gap year or just before your gap year?
yeah, it was like during my gap year.
Okay. And then concomitantly, you're teaching and you got this epiphany like, I want to make a big difference. Maybe public health would be somewhere I want to pursue.
Yeah.
Were people around you happy? Were they disappointed? Because at that point, I know as a parent, you're like, oh, my child may be a doctor. And now, I don't know, is there a job in public health? Did you get that kind of cognitive dissonance where you said, I think people want me to be a doctor, but I don't think I want to be a doctor? You said your brother's a physician, correct?
He is. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So
He's
go
a
ahead.
great.
Can you talk about that? Because I'm sure that's even within my head. When I went to college, I was very confused. Do I want to be a doctor? Do I want to spend all these years, all the stress, all the things? So talk about the hard decisions you had to make and why that gap year may have been instrumental in giving you some time, some distance to make the choice that's right for you.
Yeah, I think those are really good points, and you kind of like hit the nail on the head there. It was like at this point, I had basically told everybody in my life that I was going to be a doctor.
Wow. And everybody's so happy, right? Everybody's so happy.
To ask you all this unsolicited medical advice. I like so obviously like it wasn't just like I don't want to say crushing, but it was like it was a lot of thought. It wasn't just something that it was like tomorrow, like wow, woke up and it's like I can't wait to disappoint everybody that I've ever known.
Yeah.
It was like it was definitely like it just felt like there was just something that just again seeing like the amount of differences that like, you could be making on a more like systemic level just kind of like really propelled me towards the different career. And like also I hate taking tests. That's
Yeah.
something else I just
Yeah.
realized. And there's just no you can't not take a test when you
Yeah.
when you're doing this. And that's totally fine. And I think like if you could the earlier you can admit that to yourself, the earlier that like you will find happiness. But like there definitely it didn't come without any turmoil. That's for sure. It wasn't like I was just like being able to find the career path like that I liked wasn't just like something that I am like always happy about. Like there's always like different kind of I still think about like, yeah, is med school still for me? And then I think about like what but I love waking up at
Yes.
like 8 o'clock
Yes.
or whatever. And like when I was on my internship, like for public health schools, like my supervisor at the time gave me the best advice. that I think anybody's ever given me is like, once you start working, that is what you're going to do until you retire or you die. And so if you have the chance and you have the ability to take the time to make your decision to do what you like, you should take that time. Because again, once you start working, that is all you're going to do forever.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so like you might as well take the time to like do what you like. And I try to tell that as many people as I can, because I think a lot of the times, especially younger people like myself, take themselves too seriously and is like, I need to know what I'm gonna do 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Like, this is where I'm gonna be. Is this cool? I'm gonna, you know, settle down with and whatever. It's like that just feels like what is always running through your mind, especially when like I guess you come from a background where that's like very type A, very like streamlined in that way. But once you kind of slow down and you're like, wait, I'm just rushing towards working forever.
Yep.
What's the
Yep.
fun in that? Like that is
Yes.
what you're trying
Yes.
to race towards. Like, is that really a prize at the end of the tunnel?
Yes. Yes. And you're racing to get to that prize. And like that professor told you, you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. And a lot of high school students tell me, hey, Dr. D, I want to be a doctor. I'm going to go to a 7 year program, a consolidated program, which sounds great. In other words, you abbreviate your undergraduate, so you get into medical school or optometry school, and then I'll be done by 28. But they don't realize when they're done, they better know that they like that career and they're making the decision at a very early stage of their life. So that's a very good point. I'll tell you a personal story. I had both my sons work here, and I saw it. My son's going to work here. He's going to be a doctor. He's going to be
Yeah.
as happy as myself. And he came to me. It must have been very hard listening to you saying, "Dad, I love you, but I don't want to be a doctor."
Yeah.
And I remember my father, his grandfather, calling up and saying, "You're so silly. You have a practice. You have everything set for you." It must have been
Yeah.
such a hard decision for him in hindsight, but I associated I'm happy, so then my son's going to be happy being a doctor. And no, there's no further truth. He's actually very successful in his field that has nothing to do with medicine. He's very happy. So I guess as parents sometimes we feel this profession is the right profession for our child because we want them to be happy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The second stress that you have that I'd like you to expand upon is as you're making this decision, all your friends, your type A friends are posting probably on social media, "Hey, I got a job. Hey, I got into, this college and and your brother is now already in medical school." I forgot if your brother is older than you or younger than you. Is he?
Older than me, yeah.
Yeah, so he's already in medical school. So you have social media also. Why don't you talk about that? Because I didn't have that. My parents just wanted me to be a good human being and go to college. That was the amount of my pressure. Your pressure is much more extensive, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely, because like I mean, like I come from like a first generation immigrant background, and so like when you kind of compound that additionally with just like honestly living in New Jersey, like I'm gonna be so on or Central Jersey specifically, like um like when you kind of put that additionally like the reason that my parents were able to immigrate here like so easily was because like they as well come like they're also doctors and so
Yeah,
like they kind of have that expectation but they also like just want you to also be happy and do whatever
100%.
but like exactly what you're saying like they don't know any other way to do it like
That's
literally
exactly
that is
right.
what they did so they're like well it worked for me like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how is it different but I think what a lot of the times these parents don't understand, which I think is totally valid way to think, but like the times have changed a lot. Like the MCAT, even if they had taken the MCAT 20, 30 years ago, like it is not the same. And moreover than that, like it is way more difficult to get into med school or optometry school or any other, medical type school than it was back then either. Like at this point, you have to be in the top 0.01% in order to of like the MCAT scoring alone. In addition to that, you need to like have research experience from since you were like 8. Like
Yes.
it's
Yep.
just like all of that is it's like the expectations are not reasonable at this point. And like I can go on and on about how I think that's
Yeah.
like the
And to
detriment
be
of their
honest with you, I think you're right as far as the requirements. I remember I went to high school a long, long time ago. I'm going to date myself. It's over 40 years ago. At that time, if you got a 1400 SAT, you usually were guaranteed a 4-year scholarship to a
yeah,
college.
that's crazy.
Now, 1400 seems to be competitive, but certainly not to get into Cornell, et cetera, et cetera. In addition, is these tests, they were always difficult. We didn't have tutors and we didn't have all these courses, but you have to want it. If you really wanted it, I think a lot of doctors may not be happy because they did it for the wrong reason. And
Yeah,
they got through the tests and they got through the, like you said, the research since age 8, and they have the perfect resume. And then they get to that goal of, like you said, to work for the rest of your life and saying, I probably didn't want this. And that's what this podcast is about. That's why I started. It may be right for me, but may not be right for you, and vice versa.
yeah, yeah. And so what was your other question again about?
Social media. Social
Oh,
media.
social media. Yeah, like again, like I think that is I mean, jealousy and comparison are going to be the downfall of anybody.
FOMO.
Yeah. And like obviously it's always difficult when you get to graduation season, especially and
Sure
you're
it
like,
is.
I'm gonna be doing this.
That's a
I'm gonna tell you right now that like none of those people that say any of the things that they do are gonna actually end up doing the things that they end up doing. Like so many people who are like pre-med going into like, freshman year get humbled real quick.
yes.
And that is totally okay. Like be humbled, right? Like they call them weed out classes, making it seem like it's a bad time because you're like not good enough. But like it's not that you're not good enough. It's that you are good enough somewhere else. And you can find that niche somewhere else if you have the courage to look, which a lot of the times is very difficult to find
It
because
is.
of all the things that you were saying earlier. Like you want to be more impressive than everybody else. You want to have a 5-year plan. You want to make your parents proud. Like those
Right.
are all true
100%.
things. Oh my God. Oh my God.
You're
Sorry, that was
perfect.
like my
That's
computer
okay.
just like I thought something had happened. But like those are all pressures that definitely exist and it's like but like the best thing you do is just like put your phone down is before you crash out. Like that is definitely like it's obviously difficult to do.
It's
Like
very hard to do.
mhm.
It's very hard to do. You know it now because you're older, but if you were speaking to your 17-year-old self and I said, Anna, put your phone down, it's like you put it down, then you pick it right back up.
I mean,
So,
I'm like I'm older now, but I still do it all the
uh,
time.
yes,
Like there's
yes,
nothing. It's just like it's kind of how it is now. Like you, unfortunately, like a lot of everybody's work is tied to phones, the internet. Like we're doing this podcast via Zoom. Like
yes.
it's
Yeah, things,
impossible to avoid.
it is. But the TikTok era, the Instagram, all these social media sites, it really is hard to ignore them. But I think if you're self aware that, listen, probably what they're posting is not authentic. And if they think it's authentic, they're fooling themselves. I think that's what you're saying. Because a lot of times I do speak to high school students and they're embarrassed to tell me, or even college students, I don't know what to major in, or I started a major and it's not for me. And I said, that's what college is about. But as a parent, I have to tell you, I'm also a parent. I get very nervous. That one son that chose not to be a physician, he changed his major several times. But
Yeah.
as parents, we don't know any better, like you said. And we just said, just stick with something. But at the end of the day, he followed his own path and it worked out just well, very well.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of the times it's like you're just afraid to like let go of that control. I mean, like even as a young person, like you also want to be in control of your own fate, of your own destiny. Like you want to be able to do those things. And like it's like difficult like that's where the courage comes in. It's like a lot of the times it's just like how do you find that courage? And I think that is something that everyone can just only find for themselves. Um and I don't think like social media is always the worst thing because
Yeah.
obviously it obviously encourages your comparison among your peers and etc. But also like without social media, like we wouldn't be able to like find these different career paths either, right?
Yes.
Like you said you looked at my LinkedIn
Yes. That's exactly right.
that. And so like okay, do not go on LinkedIn, people. Especially if you're like 14, don't go on LinkedIn. It's not me. But like if you're just like looking at different jobs, like it's really easy to go and like see what different careers you
Sure. That's
Like
right.
influencer probably isn't like the most viable option, but like there's different kind of like career paths for everybody. Like if you go on Instagram, there's different types of healthcare professionals as well. Like
Yes.
and it's not just even that, like there's different like in if you were interested in more like nonprofit work, like there's a lot of different ways to get involved in that, or like in like social media managing, or like those are kind of bad examples, but like lots of people
No,
have,
I understand.
yeah,
There's good and bad in everything. And I think
yeah,
it's just trying to get the balance. But when you're younger, that balance is very, very hard. Even like you said, at your age, it's very hard. Are you happy now? You're still very young. And I'm sure
yeah.
are you happy that your path has taken you to the place you are today, at least?
Yeah, I am pretty happy right now. Like it's like, but the thing is, the more I've learned to let go of the expectations of what I want for myself and those things, I'm not saying don't plan for what you want to do, but the more that you're able to kind of let go of those expectations, mostly of yourself, because I think a lot of the times we think it's external, but most of the time it's just from ourselves of like we expect ourselves to be in this way. The happier you become. Like trying to just like live in the present, which I feel is like stupid advice sometimes,
Right.
but that's truly how it is. Like if you,
It's good advice, but it's overly simplistic. And I
yeah,
can tell you, your self doubt or your question still occurs to me in my 60s. And I
yeah,
remember if you speak to your brother, who's a physician, physicians were very insecure sometimes. Maybe I should have gone, not emergency medicine, but maybe I should have gone to dermatology. Maybe not optometry, but maybe I should. And so that indecision is not career based, it's self based.
exactly, yeah. So just like letting go of those expectations, like whatever, like because at the end of the day, no matter what you choose, you'll be able to find happiness in it if you choose to do that.
100%. That's a great advice. I was going to ask you, okay, if you had your 16, 17-year-old self, you just finished your college applications and your SATs and things like that, what advice would you give you? I think I know what you're going to say, but what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, again, it's like I think everybody knows it intrinsically, but like don't
Yes.
sweat the small stuff. Like
Yes.
truly, and everything is small stuff. Literally everything is
Yes.
small stuff.
Yep.
And like again, that feels really hard to do. Even now, like I have to continuously remind myself like this really isn't worth
Right.
stressing over all the time.
Yep.
Like whatever assignments you need to do, they'll get done.
Yep.
Like whatever, if it feels like it's gonna take forever, then it'll take forever. Like, but
Yep.
there's no use in trying to make it more than it needs to be because it'll be done. Like whatever will happen at the end of the road, it's gonna happen. And
Yep.
like
Yep.
you don't need
And,
to you
and
don't
I
need to
think I think that's great advice. It's not easy to do. It's impossible to do, I would say. But I'll give you another quote that I say to myself, and again, been doing this for so long. I keep reminding myself, don't major in minor things. And it's like don't sweat the small stuff because as type A people, also I am, offspring of immigrants. We are type A. We're born to work. We're born to work hard. We're born to work really hard. And sometimes we major in minor things. And like you said, we sweat every detail. And it's just not healthy because we feel if we don't sweat the details, we will not be happy or successful or we'll fail.
yeah.
So that's great advice.
Well, the thing is, like, the more that you worry about the small things, the more likely you're gonna fail because you're gonna make it. You're gonna be thinking of like the details more than the bigger picture. And again, like that's not an easy thing to do, especially if you were to tell 16-year-old Anna,
Sure.
like, don't worry, your
It's
paper
easy
is
for you
gonna
to say you went to Cornell. That's what they're saying, right?
I know. I also do want to note that like I got into Cornell also like I was an athlete. Like I was like recruited as well for gymnastics. So it wasn't just like I had just like,
Yeah.
done all the things and whatever. Like it also I hate to say imposter syndrome because I don't like I feel like every like I don't know how to put it, but like imposter syndrome just feels like a little more pointed. It's like it's more like the reason like we have imposter syndrome is because we just feel like we don't feel represented in a lot of spaces. So it's more like it's not that you don't belong, it's that like you feel like it's just you're never good enough. And
That never good enough.
And so like I still think that to myself, like, okay, the only reason that I was able to like get into Cornell or whatever is because I did gymnastics or whatever. But like I think like somebody told me this before, like whatever energy you put out is how much you'll get back. And so like yeah, the more anxiety you put out into the world, that's what's gonna come back to you too. Which is like again, it's really hard to kind of think about it in those senses.
I couldn't put it more accurately. I've known you since you were a young lady, and you said you were lucky that you ended up at the American Heart Association. There was no luck involved with that, I'll tell you now. You say, well, I was lucky I did gymnastics, and anybody who's done gymnastics say there's no luck involved with that. It's all hard work. So, I think the energy you've put out asked me to be a guest on today's podcast. The energy that you put out is what makes you so successful at such a young age. And I think that's really something that we all could benefit from. If we put out a lot of stress, a lot of energy, sometimes that's what we get in return.
Mhm.
So, Anna, I want to really thank you. You're very, very special. I feel privileged that you're my patient for so many years and your brother. And I really do feel that our patients benefit from your perspective. It's such a transparent perspective, a humble perspective. So I thank you very much. And I look forward to us talking about this in the future as well. So, for everybody listening, thank you for listening to the podcast. Until next time, have a great day.